Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy BoogeyMan Ben here for a new episode of BoogeyMan Ben's Horror Zone, and this is my year-end final video of 2017. And what I always do at the end of the year, I do a countdown of my top 10 favorite horror movies. I would say this is one of the strongest years in horror films that I can remember. Putting together my top 10 list for this year has been very difficult. And I really am confident in this list that I've put together. And not every film that I cover here today is one that I did a review on this year. But for all the ones I did do reviews on, I'll put links down to those reviews below so you can check those out and see my overall thoughts on the films and everything. So I hope everyone will do that and check those out. Before I get into my top 10 though, and I have my list right here so I don't forget it, but first thing I want to do is give some honorable mentions. So there were 3 films that didn't quite make my top 10, but they were films that I really enjoyed, and I wanted to make sure that I spoke about them. The first one I want to talk about is one that came out in May of this year, and it was one that was one of my most anticipated films of the year. It ended up not delivering as much as I would have liked for it to, but upon revisiting it when it was released on Blu-ray and DVD, I actually ended up liking it a little bit more, and that was Alien Covenant. My initial review of it, I had a few mixed emotions. I didn't really care for some of the character decisions. I also thought there could have been more exposition on the new crew of the Covenant ship, but for all of a couple of the negatives that I had for the film, I really did love Michael Fassbender and Danny McBride in this, and also I think it's really a good monster movie. There's some great gore effects, and the film looks fantastic. I really did enjoy Alien Covenant, and I recommend people that were mixed on it like I was revisiting it on Blu-ray or digital or however you want to watch it, but I ended up liking it more the second time I watched it. The next film in my honorable mention is Cult of Chucky. I like this film a lot. It's not my favorite film in the Child's Play franchise. The first one and the third one are still going to be my favorites. I don't know why. I just love those 2 films so much, but this was a lot of fun. It was great seeing Fiona Dorff come back and Brad Dourif, of course, returning as Chucky, but also the long-awaited return of Alex Vincent, who had a small cameo in Curse of Chucky. It was great to see him in this film a little bit. I wish he could have been in the film a little bit more, but still nice seeing him back as Andy after such a long hiatus. And I think it's great that Don Mancini has retained the rights to this franchise, and that the fact that Chucky is one of the few horror icons that has not been in a remake. They've never remade it. It's still the same storyline that started back in 1988 with the original. It wasn't a perfect film, and there were some things that I thought were kind of odd, and I thought, like I said, Andy was kind of underutilized, but I think it was a lot of fun and cool little movie. And just didn't quite make the top 10. The next film in my honorable mentions is one that I don't have yet because it hasn't been released yet. I believe it's coming out in January, and that is Jigsaw, the newest film in the Saw franchise. I really enjoyed Jigsaw. I thought it was a little tame compared to the other films in the Saw franchise because it was just kind of not a lot of gore, and that's something I just come to expect with the Saw franchise, with the over-the-top gore effects. And I just thought this one was a little bit tame. Obviously, with the way the story goes, the traps are a little bit different. Don't want to give any spoilers away for people who haven't seen it. But I still really enjoyed the film. It was great seeing Tobin Bell come back as Jigsaw. I really thought the twist ending really made the film pop for me. I really thought it was a cool ending, and one that I didn't really see coming. There was a lot of kind of red herrings that were kind of thrown into the mix, so you didn't know how it was going to end up, but really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to own it on Blu-ray and DVD. So now we're going to go into my top 10 of 2017, top 10 horror films. So number 10 on my list is a movie that I just did a review on about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and that is 1922, starring Thomas Jane and adapted from a Stephen King short story. Thomas Jane is a fantastic actor, and I'm so glad that he's getting some recognition for this role. I've always thought he was underutilized in the Hollywood system. He was great in 1922, playing a very different character, and I hope that the film does get released on Blu-ray and DVD. It's one that I would love to add to my collection. Number 9 on my list is another film that I don't have, but I will be picking it up soon, and it was Gore Verbinski's A Cure for Wellness. I was very shocked by the negativity going towards this film because from everything that I saw, everything from the marketing and the ad campaigns, I just thought it looked really, really good. And I actually really, really loved that film. It had such a vibe that reminded me of like a mix between Shutter Island and The Shining. I just really dug everything about it. I thought the acting was fantastic in it. It was really eerie. There was some great visuals in it. And yeah, I just can't say enough great things about it. I really thought it was fantastic and don't get the criticism for it. Number 8 on my list is a film that came out over the summer, and that is Annabelle Creation. This film blew me away because I was not the biggest fan of the first Annabelle film. I liked it. I did a review of it, several years ago when it came out. Really loved both Conjuring films, but just thought the Annabelle storyline was kind of done. I didn't know where else they could go with it. And it was directed by the amazing David F. Sandberg, who did Lights Out, which I absolutely loved. So I thought this film completely redeemed the Annabelle franchise, if you want to call it, or the Conjuring franchise that they're doing. Really enjoyed this film. It was very scary, very well done, fantastic young actors, and of course it had the amazing Anthony LaPaglia in it, who I've always been a fan of. Number 7 on my list is Geralds Game, which was another Netflix Stephen King adaptation by the amazing Mike Flanagan, who has done Oculus and Hush. And he did Ouija Origins, and it starred the amazing Carla Gugino, who I don't know if it'll happen, but I think she deserves an Oscar nomination for her performance in it. I just think she was fantastic in it. It was very eerie. There was some creepy imagery in it that really stuck with me, and I think it is one of the best Stephen King adaptations out there. I think Mike Flanagan and Carla Gugino both deserve Oscar nods for this, but I don't know if they'll get them because it was a Netflix film. Number 6 on my list is a film that I did a review on back in September. This was several months after it came out into the theaters and got kind of mixed reactions from audiences, even though critics loved it, and that was It Comes at Night. I was happy that I just got this as a Christmas gift. I absolutely love this film. It's a fantastic film. Joel Edgerton is just so amazing, and I just love the ambiguousness of this film. I know it's not everybody's taste, but this film is very eerie. It stuck with me. I really like the slow burn pace of it. It really worked for me, and I think this film is completely underrated. I think people need to give it a chance. If you want something different, definitely check this one out. Number 5 on my list is a movie that I really wanted to do a review on, but never got around to it. And this film blew me away. It was actually directed by Sean Byrne, who did The Loved Ones, which is another film that I think is fantastic. And this one is called The Devil's Candy. This movie blew me away. I watched it earlier this year. It was on demand, and I watched it, and I fucking loved it. I love Ethan Embry. I've always been a fan of him, but I'm also a big fan of Pruitt Taylor Vince. I've seen him in so many different things. Both actors are fantastic in this film. And I just love there's so much haunting imagery in this film. There's scenes that just stick with you by the way that they decided to edit them. So there's things that you just see or you see glimpses of, and it just gets to you. It's really eerie, really scary. Fantastic performances. Definitely recommend people checking this one out. Number 4 on my list is Jordan Peele's Get Out. Another one that I wanted to do a review on, but I never did. Fantastic movie. For a good portion of this year, this was my favorite movie. Daniel Kaluuya blew me away in this film, and I was shocked that this was done by Jordan Peele. He's a fantastic writer, fantastic director. This is a real social commentary on race in America. It's such a well-rounded film. It's such a slow-burning film, but just the way that it's done, it's just absolutely perfect. This is easily one of the best horror films that's been made in the last 20 years. And I cannot wait to see what Jordan Peele does next. Number 3 on my list is the remake of Stephen King's It. The film is fantastic. All of the child actors in it are fantastic, but Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise is just absolutely terrifying. I love the fact that he made the character his own. I love the little quirks that he did with his face and his eyes, and just that he is eerie as hell in that film. And I was a big naysayer when they were announcing that it was going to come out. I really just thought it couldn't be redone. I mean, it's like you had it from the 90s, and yes, it was a TV miniseries, but I think the thing about that miniseries that I always said you can't redo, and that was Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise. And I still think it's one of the greatest performances by Tim Curry, but I have to give it to Bill Skarsgård. He made the character his own, and the theatrical film is better than the TV movie. But I still enjoy both, but I have to give it up to the filmmakers and the actors. It's a fantastic adaptation, one of the best Stephen King adaptations ever made. Now, number 2 on my list is probably going to cause some controversy, and my number 2 and my number 1, I kept sort of going back and forth with, which one I was going to pick. But back in September, I watched this film for a one-night-only engagement, and I fanboyed out. I absolutely loved it. I know that the general consensus online is it's pretty much a lot of negativity. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we waited 14 years to get it. I think if the film would have came out in 2005 or 2006, I think the reception would have been a lot better for it, because it wasn't a mind-blowing film. It wasn't something that I think a lot of people wanted it to be. I wanted it to be something else. But I was so happy for the fact that The Creeper came back. And so number 2 on my list is Jeepers Creepers 3. Now, I know there's a lot of hate for this film, and that's completely fine. I understand it. People can hate it if they want. I absolutely loved it. I rewatched this film 3 times since seeing it in the movie theater. I watched it twice when it was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and then I watched it when I picked it up on DVD the other day. And I still love it just as much as I did. In fact, in some ways, I think I love it a little bit more. Don't ask me why. I know it. I would have preferred a direct sequel to Part 2 as opposed to kind of a prequel to Part 2 and a sequel to Part 1. But I was so happy that The Creeper came back. I think Jonathan Breck is fantastic. I think he is completely underrated as this character of The Creeper. I think that, Jonathan Breck should be given as much praise as some of these other actors that are doing these horror characters. I think he is just magnificent as the Creeper. So much personality. He's just so great as in this film, and I think that's what elevates it for me. Plus, I think there was a lot of great little ties and nods to Part 1 and then leading to Part 2 and the eventual Part 4 in this film. They had a small budget. They did the best they could with the money that they had to get something out to bring Jeepers Creepers back, and I think they did a good job with the limitations that they had. I think the film is shot really well. There's some amazing shots in this film that I think people don't even talk about. And I don't care if I get hate for liking this film as much as I do. I know this is probably going to be on some people's top 10 worst list, but for me, I was happy just to see The Creeper come back, and the more that I've watched the film, the more that I've enjoyed it. For my number 1. Now, this was one where this is the first time in, doing these videos and these top 10s of the year that I have picked a fan film as my number 1 film of the year. And this was a film that came out in October of this year for Friday the 13th. It was a film that was only an hour in length, a little over an hour. And I actually donated some money to it a year ago when the news broke that they were going to be doing this fan film called Never Hike Alone. I'm the biggest Friday the 13th fan, and Jason Voorhees will always be my favorite horror film character. The fact that Paramount and New Line have screwed over the fans consistently for nearly 9 years, promising us a brand new Friday the 13th film and never delivering on it, getting our hopes up and then canceling production because of another underperforming horror film that no one wanted. I was really heartbroken because the Friday the 13th films are a part of my childhood. They're a part of my life. And to have to go another year without Jason Voorhees, a new Jason Voorhees film, was really getting me down. And then this film premiered, and I was moved to tears watching Jason Voorhees back on the big screen, or on my television screen. It was an amazing experience. I think the cast did a fantastic job on it. I think it's one of the strongest Friday the 13th films. It tied to the original films. It was a very simple story that I think really, really works. And it amazes me that a small group of people so dedicated and in love with this franchise like I was, and so many are, were able to make this wonderful film, and the studio giants weren't. It just meant so much to me as a fan of this series that's, been waiting and waiting to see Jason come back. And it just meant so much to me that I had to put it at the top of my list because it was a perfect Friday the 13th film. And if I had to do a ranking video on the Friday the 13th films, which is something I'm planning for 2018, this would be definitely in my top 5. So number 1 on my list for 2017 favorite horror film is Never Hike Alone, or Friday the 13th Part 13. So that is going to be it, fellow fiends. Last video of 2017, talking about my favorite horror films. It's been a fantastic year for horror. There was a lot of films I had to leave out that I really enjoyed. So I'm curious what everyone else's picks were for 2017 favorite horror films. Please leave them in the comment section below. Also, please check out the reviews for the films that I did review on the channel this year. I will put links to those videos down below if you want to see my full reviews of some of these films that were in my top 10. And thank you so much for the continued support of BoogeyMan Ben's Horror Zone. I have some really cool things I'm going to be doing in 2018. A particular project that I really am going to work hard to get started on and make it a part of my BoogeyMan Ben's Horror Zone content. That should be starting up in January. I hope everyone looks forward to that, as well as doing more Shudderrific comic book, horror comic book hauls, new collectibles here for the zone, talking about upcoming horror movies that I really want to see, just all kinds of stuff. I might even do some more on locations in 2018, which I haven't done in a long time. But like I said, thank you everyone for supporting this channel. I hope everyone has a great and safe new year, and I'll see you guys in 2018. So as always, take it easy, stay scared, stay safe. Peace.